June 17, 2023, a lavish wedding reception. Champagne glasses clinked in celebration, laughter filled the air, and cameras captured what appeared to be the beginning of a perfect love story. The bride, Sophia, was radiant, her white gown trailing behind her as she twirled on the dance floor. The groom, Marco, stood proudly by her side, whispering promises of forever. Guests cheered, the music swelled, and for a moment, just a moment, it seemed like nothing could shatter this picture-perfect union. But behind the smiles, behind the vows exchanged just hours earlier, something was waiting, a truth so devastating that by the time the sun rose the next morning, blood would stain the pristine white sheets of their honeymoon suite, and one of them would never be the same again. It started with a kiss. The kind of kiss that was meant for a bride but wasn't given to her. A kiss that changed everything. A kiss that Sophia was never supposed to see. A few hours after the wedding, Sophia walked down the dimly lit hotel hallway, her heart still fluttering from the excitement of the day. She had dreamed of this moment for years, her wedding night, the beginning of a new chapter. But as she neared the door to their suite, she hesitated. The sound of hushed whispers, low muffled breaths, the kind of sounds that weren't meant for her ears. With a trembling hand, she turned the knob, and what she saw inside sent a chill down her spine. Her husband, her brand new husband, wasn't alone, and what he was doing. It shattered her world in an instant. What happened next? No one saw it coming. By the end of the night, a single call to 911 would send shock waves through the entire city. A crime scene unlike anything the responding officers had witnessed before. A confession so chilling they had to ask her to repeat it twice. Was it an act of passion? A crime fueled by betrayal? Or was there something more to the story? Something that even Sophia didn't see coming? Tonight, we uncover the shocking truth behind the wedding night that ended in bloodshed. This is the story of Sophia, Marco, and a betrayal that led to an act so brutal it left an entire community speechless. Sophia had always believed in fairy tales, and on June 17, 2023, she finally got hers. The ceremony was breathtaking, set against the backdrop of a sprawling estate with towering floral arrangements and golden chandeliers casting a warm glow over the evening. Guests dabbed at their eyes as they watched Marco take Sophia's hands, his voice steady as he vowed to love her forever. Sophia's smile was radiant, her eyes filled with the kind of happiness that only comes once in a lifetime. Marco was everything she had ever wanted. At 28, he had built a successful career in finance, was well respected by his peers, and had a charm that made people gravitate toward him. He was the kind of man others admired, well-spoken, intelligent, and always in control. But there was one person who knew him in a way Sophia never could: Alessandro, the best man. At 27, Alessandro was strikingly handsome, tall, confident, with a magnetic presence that made him impossible to ignore. He and Marco had been inseparable for years, their friendship forged long before Sophia entered the picture. To most, their bond was simply the mark of a deep brotherly connection, but for those who looked closely, something about it felt different. As the evening unfolded, the reception was nothing short of spectacular. The laughter of friends and family filled the air as the newlyweds shared their first dance. The floor was packed, music pulsing as glasses clinked in celebration. To everyone in attendance, this was the kind of love story that was meant to last. But for a select few, something felt off. A lingering glance here, a whispered conversation there, the way Marco's eyes would flicker toward Alessandro just for a second too long. No one said anything, no one questioned it, but in hindsight, maybe they should have. Because by the time the night was over, the truth would be impossible to ignore. Sophia thought she was walking into her happily ever after. She had no idea that just a few hours later, she would be staring at her husband in a way no bride ever should. And when she did, love wouldn't be the only thing she felt. As the wedding reception wound down, the night was supposed to end the way all wedding nights do, with passion, love, and the promise of a new beginning. Sophia felt the weight of exhaustion settling in as she slipped out of her gown and into a silk robe. The honeymoon suite was everything she imagined: rose petals scattered across the bed, champagne chilling in a silver bucket, soft candlelight flickering against the walls. But something was missing: Marco. He had been quiet ever since they arrived at the hotel, pacing, his phone clutched tightly in his hand. When she reached for him, he barely responded. And then, just as she was about to suggest they finally enjoy their first night as husband and wife, he pressed a kiss to her forehead and mumbled something about needing a moment alone. Sophia watched as he grabbed his phone and stepped out the door, leaving her standing in the middle of their honeymoon suite, alone. She stood there, still in her robe, wondering if forever had already started to unravel just hours after "I do." If this story has you holding your breath, don't miss what's about to unfold next. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell notification so you're the first to witness what happens when the truth walks in before love has a chance to settle. Because in the next moment, everything changes. A full 5 minutes passed, then 10. The champagne lost its chill. Sophia reached for her phone, but there were no messages from him. Something didn't feel right. She wrapped her robe tighter around herself and stepped into the hallway, her bare feet padding softly against the plush carpet. The hotel was quiet now, guests having retreated to their rooms, but from further down the hall, just past the dim glow of an exit sign, Sophia heard something. Muffled voices, low, urgent. Her fingers tensed around the door handle of their suite as she hesitated. She knew that voice. Marco. But he wasn't alone. The air in her lungs turned sharp as she moved toward the sound. With each step, her heartbeat pounded in her ears, a rhythm of unease she couldn't ignore. The voices grew clearer, hushed laughter mixing with something else, something intimate. She reached the door, room 214. The best man's room. Her hand trembled as she pressed her ear against the wood, her breath shallow. And then the gasp, a sound that sent ice-cold dread crawling up her spine. Sophia didn't think. She acted. Her fingers curled around the doorknob, twisting sharply. The door flung open, hitting the wall with a dull thud. And in that moment, the world around her shattered. Marco on his knees. Alessandro's hands gripping his hair. Their bodies intertwined in a way that made Sophia's stomach lurch. The air in the room grew impossibly still as all three of them locked eyes. No one spoke. No one moved. And then Sophia's breath hitched. Something inside her snapped. The betrayal slammed into her like a freight train, ripping through her chest, filling her with something raw, something uncontrollable. This wasn't just a secret. It was a lie. Her whole life, her love, her marriage, her future, had been a lie. And in the deafening silence of that hotel room, one thought took hold. She wasn't going to let him get away with it. She wasn't going to be made a fool. By the time the night was over, there would be blood. Time slowed. The room blurred at the edges, sounds muffled as if Sophia had been plunged underwater. The air was thick, suffocating, heavy with something she couldn't name. Her heart pounded hard, fast, erratic, but her hands were steady. Marco's mouth moved, but she didn't hear the words. His lips, swollen from kissing another man, formed meaningless shapes, but Sophia didn't care. She couldn't process it, wouldn't process it. Her wedding night. Her husband on his knees for someone else. Something dark coiled in her chest, twisting, tightening, making it impossible to breathe. And then a laugh. Alessandro, a breathy, nervous chuckle as if the situation was funny, as if she was the joke. Sophia blinked, and in that fraction of a second, something inside her broke. Her feet moved before her mind caught up. The kitchen. She barely remembered reaching it, barely felt her fingers wrap around the cool, smooth handle of the knife. But when she looked down, there it was, gleaming under the soft light of the hotel suite. Sharp. Deadly. The weight of it felt right in her hand. She turned, heart hammering, ears ringing with something primal, something deep-rooted and ancient. A rage that felt older than her body, passed down through generations of women betrayed. By the time she reached the bedroom door again, she wasn't Sophia anymore. She was something else entirely, a shadow, a force, a reckoning. She stepped into the room, and for the first time, Marco really saw her. His eyes widened, recognition dawning too late. Sophia. She didn't let him finish. She lunged. The knife cut through the air, a flash of silver, and then, contact. A scream, high-pitched, strangled. Not hers. His. A gurgling sound, the kind that comes from a throat choked with pain. Marco crumpled forward, hands flying to his groin, fingers slick with blood. So much blood. It spilled over his hands, staining the sheets, soaking into the carpet, pooling between his legs. His mouth opened and closed in silent horror, a fish gasping for air. Alessandro scrambled back, knocking over a lamp. The shade hit the floor with a dull thud, sending eerie shadows flickering across the walls. For the first time since Sophia walked in, no one made a sound. Nothing but the wet, sickening drip of blood. Drip, drip, drip. Marco collapsed onto the floor, curling in on himself, body convulsing. Sophia stood over him, the knife still clutched in her fist. Blood splattered across the delicate lace of her robe. Her chest rose and fell, slow, measured. She tilted her head, watching, waiting, as if her mind was finally catching up to what her body had done. She wasn't angry anymore. She wasn't anything anymore. She turned, eyes blank, and walked to the nightstand. Calmly, she picked up the hotel room phone, pressed a button, and lifted it to her ear. 911, what's your emergency? Her voice was eerily steady, almost detached. I just cut off my husband's dick, she said. Come get him before he bleeds out. Silence. Even the 911 operator didn't know what to say. Sophia lowered the receiver back onto its base and exhaled. It was done. Marco had taken something from her, her trust, her love, her entire future, and now she had taken something from him. The hotel was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of silence that comes after something unspeakable has happened. Sophia stood in the middle of the blood-soaked room, the scent of iron thick in the air. Marco lay curled on the floor, barely conscious, his body trembling from shock and blood loss. His hands clutched at the gaping wound, failing, to stop the bleeding. Alessandro had vanished the moment Sophia made the call. He bolted, leaving behind nothing but his frantic footprints in the plush hotel carpet. The distant wail of sirens shattered the silence. Bright red and blue lights flashed through the window as a fleet of squad cars and an ambulance skidded to a stop outside the hotel entrance. Officers moved swiftly through the lobby, past the stunned night staff, and up to room 214. The door was about to be kicked in. Flashlights would sweep the blood-soaked floor. But the real story, was far from over. If you're still watching, you already know, this isn't your average love story. So if you haven't yet, hit the like button to support bold, unfiltered storytelling. Subscribe, and turn on the bell notification, because what happens next will leave you questioning everything. And trust me, Sophia's final words won't be the ones she said on that 911 call. A loud bang rattled the door as the police announced themselves. Ma'am, step away from the weapon. Sophia turned her head, eyes slow to focus. She looked down at the blood-slicked knife in her hand as if noticing it for the first time. She let it drop. It clattered onto the floor, landing near Marco's trembling body. Hands up! She obeyed, raising her arms as two officers rushed in, guns drawn. A third officer knelt beside Marco, pressing gauze to the wound, yelling something about needing paramedics now. Still, Sophia didn't move, didn't fight, didn't say a word. She just stared, even as they twisted her arms behind her back, even as cold steel cuffs clicked shut around her wrists, even as she was led past a sea of flashing lights, uniformed men, and horrified hotel guests who had gathered in the hallway. Her face remained unreadable, no tears, no rage, just a quiet, eerie calm. The ambulance doors slammed shut. The vehicle sped off into the night, sirens wailing, racing against time. Inside, EMTs worked frantically to stabilize Marco, their hands moving fast, their voices clipped and urgent. He's lost a lot of blood. Pressure is dropping. We need to keep him conscious. Marco, can you hear me? His eyes fluttered open, dazed and glassy. His mouth moved, but no sound came out. He could barely process the pain, the sheer wrongness of it all. The last thing he remembered was Sophia's face, her blank, emotionless stare as she held the knife. Then nothing. Darkness. The media caught wind of the story within hours. A bride, fresh from her wedding, mutilating her husband on their wedding night. It was the kind of case that owned the headlines. The details spread like wildfire. Social media exploded with hashtags. Hashtag wedding night horror, hashtag bride revenge, hashtag justice for Marco, hashtag Sophia under the castrator. Reporters swarmed the courthouse when Sophia made her first appearance, dressed in an orange jumpsuit, wrists shackled. The camera flashes reflected off her smooth olive skin, her expression still as unreadable as the night she was arrested. Some saw her as a monster, others as a woman pushed past her breaking point. The prosecution painted Sophia as cold, calculating, a woman who snapped and committed an unspeakable act of violence. But her defense team had a different story to tell. A crime of passion, they called it. A woman driven to the brink by betrayal so deep, so gut-wrenching, that she acted on instinct. The jury would soon decide if they believed that. Meanwhile, in the hospital, Marco survived, but he was no longer the man he once was. The surgery to reattach what Sofia had taken failed. His body rejected the reattachment. The damage was too severe. He would never be the same again. News stations ran back-to-back segments dissecting the case, bringing in legal experts, psychologists, and social commentators. Some people called it justified revenge. He lied to her, he deceived her, he humiliated her on her wedding night, one talk show guest argued. Sofia lost control, yes, but can you blame her? Others saw it differently. Violence is never the answer, a legal analyst stated firmly. She could have left. She could have walked away. Instead, she chose to commit a crime that will affect Marco for the rest of his life. Debates raged online. If I was Sofia, I would have done the same thing. She belongs in prison. What she did was sick. Marco destroyed her trust, but she destroyed him. This is what happens when you play with people's hearts. The trial date was set. The world held its breath. Would Sofia be found guilty, or would a jury see her as a woman who simply snapped in a moment of unbearable betrayal? One thing was certain. No one would ever forget what happened on that wedding night. By the time Sofia's trial officially began, the media frenzy had reached a boiling point. Outside the courthouse, crowds gathered, some holding signs demanding justice for Marco, others supporting Sofia as a victim of deep betrayal. Inside, the atmosphere was thick with tension. Sofia, dressed in a fitted gray suit, her hair neatly pulled back, sat motionless as the trial began. She showed no emotion as prosecutors described that bloody night in gruesome detail. But the case wasn't as simple as it seemed. The defense came prepared, and what they revealed in court, it changed everything. Sofia's legal team argued that this wasn't just a crime of passion. This was a woman who had been manipulated, lied to, gaslit, a woman who had already endured deep emotional wounds before her wedding night. Her lawyer, Camilla Bianchi, a sharp-witted defense attorney known for turning high-profile cases on their heads, wasted no time shifting the focus. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," she began, stepping toward them with measured grace. "This case is not just about an act of violence. This is about betrayal. A betrayal so deep, so cruel, that it shattered a woman's reality in a single moment." And then she dropped a bombshell. Sofia had been seeing a therapist months before the wedding. Sofia had confided in close friends about something being off with Marco. He was distant, secretive. She had found messages between him and Alessandro, coded, cryptic, but she convinced herself they meant nothing. Her therapist testified that Sofia had expressed deep-rooted fears about being lied to, fears stemming from her past relationships, all of which had ended in betrayal. And on her wedding night, her worst nightmare became real. It wasn't just the cheating. It was how it happened, her new husband on his knees for his best man. On their wedding night. The trauma, the emotional distress, the pure psychological shock of it all, enough, her lawyer argued, to send any woman into a state of temporary insanity. But the prosecution wasn't letting Sofia off the hook that easily. Temporary insanity? The lead prosecutor, Antonio Ferrante, scoffed. No, no, no. This was premeditated retaliation. He painted Sofia as cold, methodical, someone who had walked out of that hotel room, retrieved a knife, and chose to return with one goal: revenge. She had time to cool down. She had time to think. But she didn't stop. The courtroom was silent. And then another twist: the forensic evidence. Sofia's defense had claimed that she acted purely in the heat of the moment, but medical examiners revealed something chilling. The angle and precision of the wound suggested an intent to mutilate. She hadn't just lashed out. She had been precise. The trial stretched on for weeks. The jury deliberated for 3 days. And finally, the verdict: guilty. Sofia was convicted of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. But then another shock. The judge, a seasoned veteran of high-profile criminal cases, saw Sofia's act not as cold-blooded malice but as an explosive reaction to an extreme emotional trauma. Instead of handing down the 15-year sentence the prosecution demanded, He made a controversial decision. Sofia was sentenced to 5 years in prison with eligibility for parole in 2 years. Gasps filled the courtroom. Some were outraged. Others were relieved. Sofia simply nodded. She had expected worse. She was led out of the courtroom in handcuffs, and behind her, Marco watched, his expression unreadable. Marco's life would never be the same. The physical damage was permanent, the psychological damage even worse. He tried to disappear from the public eye, but the case followed him everywhere. No one forgot what happened to him. Late-night talk shows cracked crude jokes at his expense. Social media was ruthless. Some mocked him, some pitied him, but no one let it go. Alessandro. He vanished. No statements, no interviews. Some speculated he moved out of the country. Others believed he changed his identity altogether. But Marco, he had to live with it. He tried to forgive Sofia, tried to understand her rage, her pain, the betrayal she felt. But every time he looked down at the reminder of what she had done, forgiveness felt impossible. Sofia, meanwhile, served her time quietly. She didn't speak to the press. She refused book deals, movie offers. And when she was released on parole just 3 years later, she disappeared from the public eye. Some say she moved to another state, started a new life. Others claim she still wears her wedding ring. No one really knows. But what everyone does know, June 17, 2023, was supposed to be the happiest night of Sofia's life. Instead, it became the night she lost everything. So now, after everything, the lies, the betrayal, the crime, the trial, we're left with one lingering question. Did Sofia take justice into her own hands, or did she go too far? Some say she was a woman pushed past her breaking point, reacting in the heat of the moment to a gut-wrenching discovery. Others argue that no amount of betrayal justifies what she did, that her actions were fueled by revenge, not temporary insanity. And then there's Marco, a man who not only lost his marriage that night, but a part of himself that he can never get back. Justice was served in the eyes of the law. But was it enough? Or was it too much? The truth is, no one really knows what they would do in a moment like that. But what about you? If you were in Sofia's shoes, how would you have reacted? Would you have walked away? Confronted him? Or do you think she was justified? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear what you think. And if you found this case shocking, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a new true crime story. Because in this world, sometimes the truth is more unbelievable than fiction. I'll see you in the next one.